for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, is Raymond Marsh.
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, where are you today, my friend? I think a place I might be pretty familiar with, huh?
I saw a statue of you in front of my hotel room. The Murphy Memorial. Guy had a Coors Light can in his hand.
Oh, no, I was a Guinness man. Don't you
I'm
worry.
joking with you. No, I'm in Amherst, Massachusetts at the hotel, and as soon as we're done, I will be headed over to the Mullen Center, which I know you know very well. What a beautiful facility, and getting ready to crank out Providence and UMass Amherst tonight. Big game in Hockey East. Huge game.
And where can everyone find that? ESPN Plus?
Yeah, ESPN Plus will be on tonight. And in Canada, it's on TSN. It's a national show in Canada tonight. Mm-hmm.
Is this the start of their slate, their NCAA slate?
I think they might have had a game last weekend, but I know that tonight's.
I remember getting the email recently.
Yep. Yeah, tonight's a national game in Canada. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. And, of course, I'll get your review on Antonio's Pizzas. I suggested to you and your wonderful wife, Melanie, so I hope you enjoy it. But until then, let's talk some hockey. We got a great guest coming up again. Minnesota Wild GM Bill Guerin will be joining us. Billy himself from that area where you're in, from Weston, Mass. Wilbraham, Mass, to be exact. Played for the Springfield Picks for a while, as he told us last year on this show. So we'll talk to him about that and everything going on with the Minnesota Wild, who are off to a great start this season. They, of course, will host a team that a lot of our viewers and listeners follow, and that is the Montreal Canadiens tonight. That should be an interesting game as well. Tall task for Montreal, but hey, they might have some confidence after that game the other night in Buffalo, afternoon on Monday. So we'll see if they can parlay off that. But Pierre, one thing I wanted to just mention too, before we get into some other NHL talk, wanted to send a welcome back to the NHL out to Dakota Joshua, who will make his debut for the Vancouver Canucks, his season debut after a little, battling cancer. So good for him that he's back there. That's great to see. And he's a guy, our viewers and listeners must know, you and I are very high on. We really enjoy watching him play. Loved him blossoming, watching his game develop last year. So glad to see him back on the ice, Pierre.
Yeah, it makes a difference for Vancouver, too, because he's a player they really haven't had the luxury of having around. He makes a difference with his size, with his skating ability, his ability to create room for other players down low. So I'm sure Rick Tocchet's extremely happy and excited to have him back in the lineup.
Yeah. And just sticking with that team, Pierre, I said to you, I think it was either on here or maybe in one of our numerous texts and calls, just that I'm starting to see when I watch Vancouver, I'm seeing a little more of what Rick Tocchet likes. The work ethic seems to be coming back. Not that they weren't working hard before, but just collectively, they're playing that trademark Tocchet game right now. And you got to think, that Rick's happy to see that now and that it didn't take longer. And obviously Demko could be on the horizon as well. So things are starting to look a little more up for Vancouver, when only a few weeks ago, they were kind of freaking out there when we had our good friend Rick Dhaliwal on.
But it wasn't so much Rick. I think Rick was actually really supportive of.
Rick was great. And credit to him.
Rick
He called it,
actually. But what I would say is this shows you why you don't overreact before the 20-game mark. Everybody freaks out, but you kind of know where your team's at between game 15 and game 20. And now we're starting to see where the Vancouver Canucks are. They weren't a one-hit wonder last year. They're a good team, and they'll be a good team again this year. So, obviously not having Thatcher Demko is a big loss. And let's remember, too, Jimmy, no Casey DeSmith. We've talked about that a lot on this show. A lot of other people haven't given it much mention, but it's a factor. It's a factor not having your two guys from last year in goal. But I like Vancouver. I've always liked Vancouver with Rick there, with Tocchet there. I know a lot of people went after him early, and they've been going after him again, but he's a heck of a coach. He's a really good coach.
Yep. And not to overreact, as you just said, to, wins, but I'm starting to feel maybe the Colorado Avalanche too, Pierre. The last couple of times I've watched them, they're starting to feel it a little more out there, and, they're getting healthier, but they're starting to feel their game. I feel like they haven't been able to apply their game and how they want to play and dictate the play on the ice. I'm starting to see that a little more from them. They had a good win last night.
They did the last 40 minutes of their game last night against LA. I don't think LA had a whole lot of fun last night playing Colorado. What's really gone on there is Nathan's gone to another level, which is kind of crazy to say. And Mikko Rantanen followed along with him. Mikko had a heck of a game again last night. And it's not always about points, but Mikko has to be about points, especially with some of the guys that have been out of the lineup there in Colorado. But Nathan, again, he was the MVP of the league last year. I don't know how much more he needs to prove, except I know he'd like to add another cup. And Jimmy, you've heard me say it for a long time. There's so many good players in the league, but there's not any player in the league more powerful. I didn't say faster. I didn't say stronger. There's nobody more powerful in the league than Nathan MacKinnon. He's the most powerful player in the league.
Yeah, and as we've discussed many times too, Pierre, probably the craziest when it comes to working out and training, as Sidney Crosby can attest. Him and Sid together, man. Maybe one day when they retire, they're going to put together training videos for the league because a lot of players could use that workout.
Hey, I'm going to give you a tip. Don't say that too loud because Gary Roberts may come and find you and do a number on you. Gary's done an amazing job training players. He's not the only ex-player doing it, but Gary's done a fantastic job. And I don't think he wants Sid and Nate cutting in on his turf.
He doesn't need that competition. All right. Sorry, Gary.
I'm trying to save your life.
Anyhow, another game, Pierre, that we had our eyes on, but unfortunately, what seemed like maybe 75% of NHL fans on Twitter last night could not have their eyes on because it was blacked out. It was the Washington Capitals and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, look, we said this was a big challenge for the Maple Leafs after that stinker they laid against the Senators back-to-back. Got to go down to Washington, play a team that's been one of the best surprises, if not the best surprise in this early season, a hard-working team as well. In the Capitals, they fall behind early, but they grind it out and they come back and a gutsy win in overtime. Now, we'll get into the called back goals and the replay stuff that went on in a second, or maybe we won't if you don't want to.
I prefer not to. I think it's self-explanatory. I think it's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
The one thing I would just say, if that's how the standard's going to be prepared for 0-0, 1-1 games in the playoffs. If that's going to be the standard. Because that can't be the standard. That cannot be.
Exactly. Well, you kind of almost took the words out of me. All I was going to say about it, Pierre, is unfortunately, I don't think it's the replay necessarily that is the problem all the time. It's maybe just the standard, the rule, like what it is. And, by the rule of the law, they're getting these things right. But maybe we got to think about that a little more, what we want the rule of the law to be. But I want to get back to the Maple Leafs. Go ahead.
No, you're not saying anything wrong because you're entitled to your opinion. But I'm just telling you, if that's going to be the standard in the playoffs, we're going to have a tough time seeing a lot of goals.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Here's what I would say. Joe Wall did what he had to do. He got the job done at the key time. It eventually leads to a John Tavares breakaway goal, and good for JT. He wasn't looking so slow there. I know everybody's wondering about his speed. He wasn't looking so slow there. So I'm really happy for JT. He's one of the nicest guys. Jimmy, I remember when he's 15 years old, we went to Europe, to Russia, actually, and we were there a long time. And everybody wanted to see what he was made of, including the coach, Brent Sutter. And he challenged him and he pushed him and he prodded him. And I was there and I watched it all. And Johnny was great. Johnny was so good. I mean, he was really special. And it was a team of amazing players. Milan Lucic was on that team. Claude Giroux was on that team. Drew Doughty was on that team. It was a murderer's row of players. It really was. It was a phenomenal team. And you could see by the end of that tournament, when that event, Brad Marchand was on that team. When that thing was over in Vancouver, I can just tell you right now, you could tell Tavares was going to be really good. And you could tell he's going to be a top 5 pick, and he eventually ended up being a number 1 pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you went there because that was the main topic I wanted to pull from that game is just the way going back to when the captaincy changed in Toronto and with the class and dignity and team first attitude he had to what he's done on the ice now, it's a great story. And I think maybe being a little underreported. I mean, he's a key part of their success right now again. And he's really found his game again. And he doesn't need to have that seat of lead. He's leading by example, Pierre.
I agree. That's really well said. And I totally agree. The other thing too, is They haven't had Austin Matthews for 5 games now. And,
right.
and I said it to you yesterday. I know you couldn't see me, but they were no good against Ottawa. And that's not it's not Ottawa's fault that Toronto was bad. Toronto just was no good right out of the gate. Nylander turns the puck over 41 seconds into the game. They're down 1-0 off a great shot by Josh Norris. That's not acceptable. And Berube gave it to him. And he should have given it to him. I think Craig's doing a really good job with that group. I really do. I'm really happy for him. He's a hard coach. He's a good coach. He's a fair coach. But he makes his players better, and he holds them accountable. He creates standards internally. And Johnny Tavares has had no problems living up to those standards. I'm really happy for John. I really am.
Really, he's a great story. He's a good guy. And Pierre, just looking quickly from last night again, as you said to me, I mean, what are you going to do when you're the Carolina Hurricanes and you run it and you get goalied? And that's exactly what happened with. And that's not to take anything away from the rest of their team, but Fomenko was he was unreal.
He was Carl was really good. The one thing that I think is going to be interesting that comes out of that, and Carcone fought Drury, and he kind of jumped him a little bit. And the next time they play, and I don't go down this road a lot.
You store it away.
Next time they play, I think that's going to be interesting. I know Jack really well. I coached his dad. I went and watched him play in Waterloo. I spoke with him a lot when he was at Harvard. I worked with him in the summer, a couple summers. He's a tremendously proud kid. I didn't like that part. I'm not afraid. That part of the game doesn't bug me. But I think that's something that I take out of that game going forward, where it's going to be interesting to see what happens coming out of that.
And I'll give credit to Pierre, as I said to you. I know they didn't get the win, and the losses are racking up in Anaheim right now. But the last 2 games, much better in this team. Much better.
They're playing harder. Again, I thought that I got this wrong. I thought Cutter Gauthier was right better. With you. No, but I'm just telling you, like I call when I get it right, I'll tell you. When I get it wrong, I got it wrong. I got it wrong on Cutter Gauthier to start the year. Not at the 20-game mark yet. He's having a tougher time getting going than what I thought. And I thought their D would be a lot better. I know they've had an issue with injuries with Fowler, but I thought their D would be better, more mature. That hasn't happened yet. But I think they are, to your point, Jimmy, I think they are playing harder, which is great. And that's a sign. Look, and we love Cronin here on this show. We love Greg Cronin. A lot like Berube, he institutes standards with his team. You may not like the way he does it, but he does it. And I think he's a really good coach, and hopefully he can get going here so that he can stabilize that thing a little bit more.
All right. Well, a team that's definitely got it going early on in the season here is the Minnesota Wild, and their general manager, Bill Guerin, is joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Billy, how you doing? We got you? Uh-oh. He's driving somewhere. I think we hear him. Billy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm driving somewhere. Pierre, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Bill, and I'm sure you're probably driving to a rink somewhere because that's just in your DNA.
Yeah. I'm driving from a rink. I got some personal stuff I got to take care of, but then back for the Habs tonight are in town, so I'll be ready for that.
Good stuff. And Pierre is actually out in your neck of the woods, your native neck of the woods at UMass Amherst, Billy.
Oh, man. 413. Western Massachusetts. It's the best. I love it.
Hey, I got a Billy Guerin story to tell you before we get serious with Billy. When I was coaching at St. Lawrence and Gary Deneen was coaching the Springfield Olympics, they had Scott LaChance, Billy Guerin, and a Bobby Kellogg. They all were NHL draft picks, and they had a kid named Diesel Danny Hunter, whose father owned a gas station down the road a little bit. But hey, I said to my boss at the time, I said, we could charter a bus, put these guys up in a hotel. I think we got a chance to maybe get Billy Guerin and Bob Kellogg. We're not going to get LaChance, but we might get the other two. So they bust everybody up. Billy ended up going to BC. He broke my heart, but we did have him up in the North Country when I was at St. Lawrence for a nice weekend, and Billy was great. Billy was great.
Yeah, those are all tough decisions for young guys, but and it's funny. I don't even think kids take these recruiting trips anymore, which I took, a handful of them, and it was awesome. It was a great experience, and I think some of the kids they miss out on it by not doing as many as they can.
I agree. I totally agree.
Billy, before we switch over to your team too, now I just thought of it too. We've been asking a lot of our guests about it, GMs, what have you. Just your take on the new NCAA CHL agreement and how it affects you and your scouts and the way you guys are going to scout from here on in.
Yeah, it's I'll be totally honest with you. I don't know how I feel about it yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
I really haven't taken the time to kind of dive in and see how it's going to play out or try to figure it out. It definitely opens the gates. It's giving kids different opportunities. So I really don't have a great answer for you right now, but yeah, that's just honest. But it's crazy. It's different. But yeah, I guess, hey, look, the whole world's changing. So the worst thing that you do is just fight it and go against it. You're going to have to embrace it at some point in time.
Exactly.
Jimmy, I got to tell you, one of the toughest guys, he was a 5th overall draft pick in his draft year, Bill Guerin. He was big, he was fast, and he was robust. Billy, you got to be thrilled with the way your team's playing right now because they're playing big, they're playing fast, and they're playing robust. It reminds me of you. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Pierre. They're playing aggressive, fast hockey, but I wasn't always the smartest guy, but they are playing smart hockey. I think our coaches have done a magnificent job delivering certain messages to them, how to play the game, situational hockey, puck management, the importance of it, and that you don't have to sacrifice offense to do it. And our players have done a great job of listening, buying in, and then carrying out a game plan. And I think they're just really having fun playing this style of hockey and winning hockey games. It's fun. Winning's fun. And so I'm really proud of the guys and the way they've started. But it's just a start. This is a long season. You see teams getting better all the time. So, you have to stay humble and you have to stay businesslike and keep going. But these are our expectations.
Billy, I know our friend right here, Pierre McGuire, has always been a big advocate of this player, but how has Marco Rossi's emergence this season kind of not only helped his game, obviously, but sort of helped the center position even out and fall into place?
Well, Marco's worked really hard the last couple of years to get a little, heavier, stronger, faster, and it's paid off. He's a very intelligent player. He plays, both sides of the puck very well, and he's being rewarded for it. He gets to play with Kaprizov and Zuccarello on a nightly basis, and that's not a bad thing. So it's a good story when you have a homegrown kid. Like, we drafted him, our development guys did a great job with him, and he's having some success in the NHL. So yeah, it's a good story.
You know what else is a good story, Billy? Your acquisition of Brock Faber. That has got to be considered one of the great steals of all time. And I know you traded away a good player in Fiala, but Billy, can you I know what goes into it, but just take us through the mindset of an organization led by the GM to go out and get a young player like Brock Faber.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, Pierre, it be a great trade. And when I say that, it's a great trade for both sides. And, Rob Blake and I have talked about this a couple of times because, Kevin Fiala is an excellent player. He's exactly what Blakey said they needed at that time, and that he's a point machine. And they needed that. And we couldn't afford to keep Kevin. He had outpriced himself with our salary cap situation. We needed some younger players. So we ended up getting a first-round pick, which turned into Liam Ogren, who's playing in Des Moines right now and doing very well, and turned into Brock Faber, who's been special for us. And, that's a win-win when you see it work out for both sides like that. But, coming from our side, we couldn't be happier. And Brock has made an enormous impact on the team, the whole organization, and the community. This how people in Minnesota, they love their own, and he's a homegrown kid. He loves Minnesota, and it's just great. It's great to see, and he's a stud. He's a stud player.
Hey, Jimmy, before you go any further, I just want to tell you about, because, General Manager Guerin said something about Liam Ogren. Liam Ogren's a tremendous talent. Liam Ogren just had a hat trick down in the American Hockey League on a team that's trying to find their way. So it speaks to what Billy was just talking about, the development of players. And I think that's one thing Minnesota has done fantastically well, internal growth with young players. Really, really improved.
Yeah, for sure. Between the pipes, Billy, I mean, Pierre and I talk about this guy all the time. He's not getting enough love nationally across the league, but talk to us about Gustafsson and what he's meant so far.
Yeah, well, he's getting a lot of love in our dressing room, and that's really all we care about. He's been fantastic, and you know what? When Flowers gotten in there, Flowers been fantastic. The guys are playing hard in front of them. They're coming up with big saves. Gus is, I wasn't. I think a lot of people were down on Gus after last season. I wasn't. Look, the goaltenders and their numbers are really impacted by the team in front of them. And we had so many injuries, so many impactful players out for long stretches, including Jared Spurgeon, who was out 90% of the year. That will impact the goalie. That impacts your grade A scoring chances against, all that stuff. It affects your penalty kill. So I wasn't as down on him as everybody else, but there was a question of how was he going to respond? And he put the work in this summer. He had a great camp, and he's doing well. He's rebounded, and that's not easy to do. So he deserves a lot of credit.
That's well said. And the other thing I want to add, and nobody talks about this, Fleury was a Pittsburgh Penguin draft pick, and Gustafsson was a Pittsburgh Penguin draft pick. And Billy was there for Gustafsson when they drafted him, and so he knew him extremely well. So Billy doesn't take enough credit on that one. But I'm going to tell you, Billy, I know what you went through and the research that you did, and it's paid off. 100% it's paid off. So I'm going to do a flip-flop on you. When you see Matt Boldy, what do you think when you see him as a general manager and a former player in this league that was a Stanley Cup winner? What do you think of Matt Boldy as a manager?
Oh, I think the world of Matt, and I think he hasn't even come close to reaching his potential. He came in, tall, skinny, lighter frame, kind of, a little weak, but you could still see the skill level. But now as it's been a couple of years and he keeps getting stronger in the summer, he comes back, he's turning into like a man, and now with the extra size, strength, speed, his skill, because he can stay in the battle longer, his skill looks even better, and he can give himself second and third opportunities. You know what? Look he's got a great shot. He's got great vision. He's getting to the ugly areas now. That was the biggest thing missing, I think, and he's getting there. This kid, he still has lots of room to grow, but he's a special player.
Yeah, I think he's on his way to being a real good power forward. Billy was more physical than Matt was when he came out of school, out of BC to go to New Jersey. But sometimes I see it and I'm like, there's some Guerin in this guy. I'm watching.
Yeah, Pierre, I agree with you though. Hey, look, there's physical offense, and he's getting in. He's finishing some hits. He's getting to the front of the net. It's just then he gets the puck on his stick, and he just makes something dynamic happen all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's that power game that he has. He's learning how to use it more and more every night.
Billy, John Hynes, obviously well respected within the U.S. hockey community, but from what you knew of him, what you knew he could bring, how are you seeing that now translate on the ice with the team?
Well, I like I said earlier, I think you see a maturity in our team, and I think it's not just what John has brought, like system wise, or how they've improved the penalty kill or the power play, whatever. It's also in the way in which he communicates it to the players. If coaches try to jam it down your throat and just force it on you,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't always go that well. John's got a great way of communicating with the guys and explaining to them what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the benefits of doing it, what the outcomes are going to be because of doing it, and what the outcomes will be if they don't do it. So he really spends a lot of time on communicating with the guys and explaining to them why he feels this way and why we need to play a certain way, and they can all benefit from it.
So as you say that, I'm thinking about a young Billy Guerin playing in New Jersey, and you had this French guy that used to wear number 25 in Montreal, and he was a pretty good checking center. Did he kind of treat you the same way as maybe Johnny Hynes treats some of his guys?
It was a different day.
Yeah. Time then.
I had a little bit shorter of a leash, but Jacques Lemaire is probably the smartest hockey guy I've ever been around. With all due respect to my other coaches, he is the best coach I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And he instilled things in me: discipline, commitment, the focus on the team and winning, detail in your game, focus on the little things. Those are all things he demanded, and he did it through accountability. Yeah, there are plenty of nights with Jacques where I played a lot, and there are plenty of nights where I didn't come back into my D zone and stop in the middle of the ice from a defensive zone coverage. I was going to cheat and try to get offense. Yeah, I found myself riding pine that night, but he was teaching me. They were lessons, and I carried those through my whole career, and I still hold on to things that Jacques and Lou Lamoriello taught me in my first years in the league, and they were so impactful. And it's a discipline and a sacrifice, but if the end result is the win, then that's all that matters.
I hear you.
Well said.
Hey,
That's really
Bill,
well said.
For sure. Bill, before we let you go, I just got to ask you, you've got another job you've been working on this fall, and that's general manager of Team USA for the Four Nations. How is that going right now, constructing that team? Because the deadline is sneaking up.
Yeah, it's sneaking up, and I'm lucky. I have Tommy Fitzgerald, Billy Zito, Chris Drury, Chris Kelleher all working with me to put this team together. Mike Sullivan and his coaching staff have been fantastic through this whole process, and but I have a lot of good people around me helping me make these decisions. And USA Hockey over the last 25 years has just done such incredible work to develop players and grow this player pool. I mean, when we're going down, especially at the start, when we're putting together these lists positionally, and we're looking at the players who will definitely be on the team is one thing, but the players who might not be on the team is another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible. We're at the point where we could put two teams out there. So the game has grown. We've got some of the greatest players in the world right now that are from the United States. They're driven. You see, what Matthew Tkachuk did for the Florida Panthers, and Jake Gensel's Stanley Cup winner. You see Jack Eichel, how he's transformed his game. Austin Matthews is now the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. A kid from Arizona is the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and well-deserved. These are the type of players that, the United States is developing. And even look, Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, Norris Trophy winners. it's fantastic. So we are having a great time. We're excited about the team. The decisions are very tough, but we also feel like in a management and coaching group, we'll make tough decisions, but we're also grateful to be in the position to make them because of this player pool.
Yeah, for sure. Just one more follow up on that too. You know, I was listening to somebody on Sportsnet today. They're talking about Canada and you know how they're keeping tabs on some guys that have been injured, and you don't want to let that injury necessarily knock them out of their spot. Is that kind of the way you approach it, where maybe you see a guy's injured, or maybe his stats aren't usually what they be, but you know from scouting him in the past that he does have what it takes to play for you? Like, how do you balance that with what happens from the start of the season to that deadline, not knocking a guy off that mantle too fast or too much?
Well, I think, you know, the one thing you have to do is have a whole bunch of respect for a player's body of work. Mm-hmm. Listen, everybody gets off to a tough start. Everybody has down seasons. You know, how can you balance that between his body of work? So, you know, being through this myself, you know, being cut from an Olympic team, you know, then being an older player and not being able to do it anymore, like those are, you have to, I was always treated with respect. And I think that's just really important for us to do with these players because they've all earned it.
Beautiful. Good stuff.
Go take care of your game against the Montreal Canadiens. It's not like you haven't had a lot of success against the Canadiens over time in Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to avoid Kent Hughes. Anytime he comes into town, he wants me to buy him 2 dinners. So I'm just trying to duck him.
You just stay out of that St. Paul grill. I know where you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Billy, have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the season. We'll talk to you down the line. Billy Guerin joining us here.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
Billy.
Our
pleasure. Our pleasure. Billy Guerin joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. He's a true character in the
I don't know if
truest
really
sense of the word.
Dude, I don't know if people know how good he was. I'm telling you.
Oh, that's great.
Like, I'm telling you, we paid for a bus and hotels and meals for a whole team to come up to upstate New York, and we were trying to get him and 2 other players. And
yeah,
if you get that player, your whole program changes significantly. And you know, we were one of the top teams in the country back then. And eventually Billy came up with BC, and we did a tap dance on BC and BU in the back-to-back weekend. And people are like, oh, these guys really are for real. Yeah, we were good. We had good teams. But, you know, that was a player. I had known Billy's body of work probably since he'd been 15 years old, and he was such a good player. Such a good player.
It's interesting, Pierre. I first found out about Billy because back when he was starting off with the Devils, his first year was the year they won the cup, right? 94, 95, I believe. He won it his first year. Yeah. So, you know, I didn't know much about him, and I'm going to UMass. And as that playoff season was getting underway in 95, I'm at a watering hole, go figure, in Holyoke, Mass, called Nick O'Neill's, which is now Brennan's. So shout out to them. It's a great place. And I'm talking to a guy who's a rink manager at the time. I'll never forget it, down in the Olympia in Springfield.
Well, that's where their team played. The Olympics played.
Exactly. And so he says, Murph, watch this kid. He's going to be a stud. I'm telling you. And I had heard of him at BC, but I never really watched him closely. So from that point on, in that playoff season, I was honed in on Billy Guerin. And he wasn't a star yet, but he came on in that playoffs. He played a really good role helping them out. And, you know, and it was like, wow, that guy was right. I'll never forget that guy telling me about him. And he was right. And he went on to have a great career.
Oh, he had a phenomenal career, you know, and he's surrounding himself with very good people. You heard some of the people he's working with for USA Hockey, and those are really strong hockey people, obviously. And, you know, I think Minnesota, they're a sleeping giant right now. They've got the fans behind them. The players are believing. They've got some young players starting to filter through. They're going to have cap relief at the end of this year because Suter and Parise's contracts go away.
Yep.
So they're going to be a team, and it's a desirable place for players to go play. If you're a real hockey player, it's a good hockey environment to be in. It's a great place to raise kids.
When I when I wrote on him earlier, Pierre, you remember I did that story on him in the beginning of the season, and one of the things he said, he says, "Look, Murph, we just want to get to the playoffs this year. We want to try, and then once those contracts are gone, and we don't have to think about that anchor," he called it, "we'll be good and we're on our way." Well, now they're already on their way, so think about where they're going to go from here. And that's
I agree 100%. And they look at Jesper Wallstedt is a good example, a goaltender that's already spent some time in the NHL. They've got some very good young defensemen. Carson Lambos is one of those guys. Damon Hunt is another one of those guys. They've got some players coming. He talked about Liam Ogren. I mean, I watched Liam play a ton over in Sweden, and I can tell you he's going to be a very, very good player in the NHL. Like I said to you before, he had a hat trick the other night in the American Hockey League on a team that's not very good right now. They're up and down. But that's hard to do. It's hard to score 3 goals in any league. He had 3 in an American Hockey League game with a team that's not great. So
I hear. Well, listen, I know you got to be out cold at 4:50. We got to get you out. So let's get to that Q&A, and let's talk to you right now about our – and before we get to Betway, I just want to say, Pierre, we pre-recorded a great interview today. You can watch it tomorrow, everybody, with Ted Donato, the head coach of Harvard, who will be over in Belfast with us for the Friendship 4. Really looking forward to that. I mean, you could tell how excited Teddy was.
Oh, my gosh. He was so pumped to be going over there. He's already gone over, done a site survey.
He already did a scouting trip over there.
He's already did a scouting trip on it. He's ready to go.
So definitely check that out. And obviously, our big thanks to everyone involved with the Friendship 4 and Sarah Stanton and Cara Travel. So looking forward to that. All right, let's get to our sponsor, Betway. Let's pull them right up there. They are the leading betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. If you're watching right now, you can sign up right there with the QR code in front of you. Otherwise, go to their website, sign up there, and remember, always be 18 plus and bet responsibly. I always bet responsibly, but I'm betting dumb lately, Pierre. So I'm hoping I don't lead any. Maybe, in betting, they have this thing called fading, Pierre. I don't know if you know what it is, but when a guy is on a losing streak, you bet the opposite of what he says. So maybe you need to fade me here on these bets. But I got a nice parlay that I think will hit for everybody now. So it's a 3-team parlay. You want to take the under 6.5 total goals in the Devils-Panthers game. You want to take the Ottawa Senators -1.5. And also in the Stars-Bruins, take the under 6.5 goals there. Hopefully that gets you a winner there. That's a 3-team parlay. Go over to Betway, check it out right now, and good luck. All right, let's get to the Q&A. All right, this is from Twitter. I sent it earlier, so I remember. Josh McCarran asks, do you think Alex Newhook can use his speed and be effective a la Paul Byron? Thank you. Thanks for checking in, Josh. Pierre?
100%. I also think he can finish a little bit better. I was with Paulie the other day at the Hall of Fame. It was great to see Paul. He looks great. He looks healthy. And I asked him about his health, and he said his health was good. I was happy to hear that. He's just a tremendous guy. He's really enjoying his job as a development coach with the Canadiens right now. So I was happy to hear that. But I think Newhook has similar speed to Paul Byron. He's a little bit bigger than Paul Byron, and I think he's got a little bit better, more pure finish when it comes to putting pucks in the back of the net. So I think he can. I really do.
Yep. All right. Next question. Alex Evanelski. What's up, Alex? Edvinsson had a nice goal in OT last night. Yes, he did. What can we expect from him offensively when he comes into his own? Is he a potential Norris Trophy candidate in the future? He seems to have all the tools. Well, Pierre can talk about him because Pierre's been pumping him up for a while now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I've been watching the player for a long time, and when it wasn't fashionable to say who Simon Edvinsson was, I was saying it a lot on this show and other shows. I think he does have potential to win a Norris Trophy. I truly do. I think offense will continue to evolve and get better. I don't know if they'll keep the partnership with he and Moritz Seider, but if they do, I think that'll be really positive for the Red Wings and for Simon. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the player. His mobility, his size, his composure with the puck, his ability to shoot the puck. He's a special player. He's a special player.
All right, next question. Energize. Remember the Senators were penalized a first-round pick that they had to choose in either 25, 26 draft because of the Dadonov situation? Yep. Shortly after purchasing the team, and Lauer was pissed. One of two. He said something along the lines of, why I inherited this is beyond me. Is there a world where we see it reduce? I feel like it's a pretty harsh thing to tax towards your new owner. I'd agree. I think, Pierre, you might have a little conflict of interest talking on that.
All I'm going to say is he knew what was going on, and the rules are the rules, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, we'll move on because, Pierre works for the Senators, so I don't put him in a tough position. All right, next question. Steven Greidenus. With rumors that Chris Letang and David Juracek are possibly available, as the GM of Montreal, would you consider trading for either, and what would you give up? I haven't heard Letang. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of rumors out of Pittsburgh, and it's only going to get worse. But I talked to somebody last night actually specifically about Letang and said there's nothing yet to that. They need to go to him and talk about it. So they're open for business for trades, but I haven't heard Letang. I'd hold back on right now. But the other kid in Columbus, Pierre, I would say with the acquisition of Faber in Columbus and his playing time continuing to decrease, he could be out there. I don't know that for a fact.
And the GM that's there isn't the GM that drafted him.
Exactly.
So that's a bit of an issue too. I could see Juracek get traded, but I don't know. I have not heard anything about Letang. I haven't heard one thing about Christopher, so I don't know that. What the value is, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I don't know what the Canadiens would be prepared to trade right now. They're pretty top heavy with young defensemen, and they've got one guy who scored in overtime last night, Mayu, and Logan is a heck of a player, and he's playing in the American League. Reinbacher's hurt. You start to look at the numbers on their defense. It's going to be a hard defense to crack.
Yeah. And, going back to what I'm saying about Pittsburgh, I'm just a warning out there to everybody. Like, you're going to hear so much of Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and there's going to be so much stuff flying around. Try to sift through it and wait and wait till it's real, because that's just how things are going right now in Pittsburgh. It's getting ugly. So be wary of what you hear out of there. All right. Next question. Randy Workman, are the Leafs misusing Nick Robertson? I mean, in what respect, Randy?
Well, they move him around. They move him around the lineup a lot. I think that they see him as more of a small player, not playing to the identity that the team wants him to play. They've got other players coming in and out. Now, one of the things that's happened there, and he's a friend of mine, Max Domi hasn't scored yet. And, Max has to get going. They need him to get scoring here. And I think they're trying to find the right mix for him. It just hasn't happened yet. But I don't know if they're misusing Nick. I would say no. I would say they're not.
Yeah. He's another, just in case Pierre, his name's been all over social media the last.
Well, yeah, because people are seeing they just keep moving them all around the lineup or sit them out of the lineup. Yeah. I get it. It's I don't think people realize how hard this league is. I don't think people understand it. It's really hard. And to last in this league is even harder because there's so many good young guys coming every year now.
Yep.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Definitely. All right, next question. Postnet 130. How long will it take USA to surpass Canada in numbers percentage in the NHL? Roughly now is Canada 42, USA 28, Sweden 9, Russia 7, other 14%. Well, as Bill Guerin said, I mean, USA has come on strong over the last 7 years. They're catching up. They are. I mean, look at the draft. And we actually talked about that with Teddy Donato. You can check it out again tomorrow, not to pump that again, but it was a great interview.
No, and great interview.
Teddy had great stuff to say on that. So
here's one thing to remember with this, and you brought it up with Billy, and to his credit, he said, look, I don't know enough about it right now, so I'm not prepared to comment with the CHL situation with U.S. college hockey. But if you want to break those numbers down even more, 35% of the National Hockey League right now, 35% are college-trained players. So that's Canadian and American. Celebrini's a Canadian that played college hockey.
Yep.
Jonathan Taves was a Canadian who played college hockey. I'm just telling you, that number is going to continue to evolve.
Now and I think Canadians can come down.
Yeah, the Canadian number is going to go down and the U.S. number is going to go up.
Yep. So keep an eye on that. All right, next question. Randy Workman, if you're the Flames, should we take bad contracts from teams for future assets? I don't know. Maybe at the deadline.
Okay. I understand how fans would think that. here's something that you got to think about as a fan. And you shouldn't have to, but you need to now if you're a fan of a Canadian market team. The reality is the Canadian dollar is in the gutter. And I don't know of non-playoff teams in Canada that are going to want to be taking on U.S. dollar contracts that are bad contracts for players that are not going to contribute. I know nobody wants to write about it. I know the league doesn't want to talk about it. I hope the league understands I'm not trying to make this a big deal, but it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It is. And, you know, we won't get into it now. We don't have time, but just keep an eye on this Winnipeg situation as well. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque, early prognostications, winning the Friendship 4. All right, Ron, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to take BU.
You're going BU? Is that because we have to fly over with them?
No. I'll talk to Mr. Pandolfo. Don't worry.
No.
Take BU.
Pando respects he respects us because we tell it like we see it, Pierre.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons that we're.
So who are you going to take?
I'll tell you. You know what, Pierre? I'm going to tell you a good joke to finish it off here. Knock, knock. Go ahead.
Who's there?
Banana.
What?
Banana who?
Piano.
Banana. Banana. Notre Dame, baby. Jeff Jackson's final.
You're part of the Subway alumni. I get it.
No, I'll go with Notre Dame. We'll see Notre Dame.
I'll tell you who's going to have a lot to say about that. You know who's going to have a lot to say about that? Teddy Donato and the Crimson, because they played Notre Dame's first game. So we'll see. We'll see.
It's a soft spot for Jeff Jackson because this will be his last time over there doing this. It's his last.
And you know what? Every coach it's playing against is going to want to kick his behind. Not because they don't like him, but they don't want him to beat him.
You know what else they're going to want to beat him, Pierre, because they're going to get the automatic local fan base because they're the fighting Irish and they're in Ireland. You watch, that's going to be hyped up. So we already saw it with their commercial they did on Twitter there. So
by the way, that commercial was outstanding.
That was awesome. That
really
got me
good.
pumped.
It
was great stuff. All right, one more question, and then we got to roll for Pierre. So give me one more here. Alex Evanovsky, is it too early to talk about the 2025 draft, especially for the Canadians fans here? I saw in The Athletic they've got Maloney ahead of Higgins. How good are they both going to be?
They're both going to be really good. They're both going to be really good. It's too early to have anybody. It's not that kind of draft. It's a different.
Yep.
This is going to be one of those where you might be number one at the midseason, and then you might be number 3. You know, this is going to be interesting this year. My guy is, McKenna, but it's not for this summer. I think Gavin McKenna, if he was eligible, might go number 1. By
the way, Pierre, I mean, you've seen him, but just for our listeners, like the puck sense and the creativity of Higgins is insane out there. Like I've been watching him a lot. He's something. I enjoy watching him. It's
hard to be a number 1 center in Hockey East. It's hard to be a number 2 center in Hockey East. To do that as an underage, a draft eligible player, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, and they're an elite team. You know, Boston College is either first or second in the country, depending on who you talk to. I still think Denver's the best team, but BC's right there with them. Right there with them.
So if you get a chance, and for our Canadian viewers, all these college games like the one tonight between Providence and UMass with Mr. Pierre McGuire on color, check those games out because you're going to see some great hockey, and Pierre will be doing plenty more, so check him out as well. I want to thank Billy Guerin, GM of the Minnesota Wild, for joining us here on the Eye Test. Thanks to you, Pierre. Thanks to our production crew, specifically Shane, working the boards up in Montreal. And thanks to you, the viewers and the listeners, for joining us here on another edition. Remember, tomorrow on Campus Friday, Ted Donato, the head coach of Harvard, joins us. So check it out. We'll talk to you Monday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.